Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for Women Empowerment and Leadership's Online Summit tonight. Not now, not ever. This seminar is very timely in that we are currently observing Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Month. My name is Sav Singh. I'm a solicitor and migration agent with Emerson Family Law and a proud member of Women Empowerment and Leadership. It gives me great pleasure to be chairperson for tonight's proceedings. Domestic and family violence continues to plague our society. In Australia, 1 woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner. 1 in 3 women experience physical abuse by a current or former partner from the age of 15. And similarly, 1 in 5 women experience sexual and emotional abuse by a current or former partner from the age of 15. These forms of intimate partner violence are the main contributors to illness, disability, homelessness, and premature death for women aged 18 to 44. The tragic and heartbreaking murder of Kelly Wilkinson on the Gold Coast just this past month by her estranged husband is another devastating example of this stain on our society. Such tragedies and staggering statistics warrant immediate and sustained responses by the community so as to address and limit the perpetration of violence against women. To begin, I thought it would be appropriate to discuss from the perspective of a frontline worker who is assisting clients in the legal capacity in managing situations of domestic violence, what we have observed. So, seeing as I'm a family and a migration lawyer, we have observed that there are particularly intersectional disadvantages faced in particular by migrant and refugee women, otherwise known as the CALD community. So this marginalisation that is felt by this demographic has been established to multiply at intersections of ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, migration status, English capabilities, and the resulting institutional roadblocks to them accessing support. So this consistent failure to be conscious and proactive in addressing the complex interactions in CALD women's family violence experiences does contribute to their disempowerment, and it does jeopardize their recourse for seeking protection. So in our capacity as solicitors, we mainly assist clients experiencing family violence in seeking interim and final protection orders, drafting consent orders pertaining to parenting and property matters, and in the migration realm, we do assist clients traverse that complex migration landscape, particularly when their migration status can relegate them to a higher level of legal vulnerability. So, for example, accessing family violence provisions, which are specifically targeted for assisting women who are in Australia dependent on their sponsors' visas, and they experience domestic violence, which is perpetrated by their sponsoring partner. So we seek to assist them in remaining in Australia independently, where they do not feel that they must stay with their sponsoring partner in order to remain in Australia. So that's enough from the legal perspective. We're very fortunate to have here today 2 highly accomplished women who are igniting positive dialogue in this domestic and family violence realm, and who are truly making a very tangible difference to women's lives. We have Dr. Annette Hurley. She runs her own business, Career College, which is a keynote speaking, training, mindset, and career coaching center, where she provides support to clients to make necessary changes and to rebuild a better life for them and their children. She also runs Career Development and Management Guru, as well as her own executive recruitment agency, Acorn Recruitment, where she assists clients in resolving staffing issues, assists clients in finding job opportunities and promoting career development and training services. We also have with us Rita Anwari, founder and president of Women Empowerment and Leadership. Ms. Anwari was inducted on the Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Roll by Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk MP in 2020 in recognition of her action in preventing domestic violence and raising awareness for those impacted by DV in Queensland. She has also been awarded the 2020 Queensland Day Award by Honourable Cameron Dick MP for her contributions as an outstanding member of the Woodridge community. Finally, Miss Anwari has also been appointed as a Peace Ambassador for under the Universal Peace Federation of Australia, and she was also a finalist for 2021 Australian of the Year. So I'd like to begin by directing some questions to Dr. Hurley. So first, Dr. Hurley, we wanted to know a little bit about what has spurred you on to help women who are experiencing domestic and family violence.
Domestic and family violence for women, I also assist men as well. So, Sav, I do have male clients that have been experiencing domestic violence. So, but generally speaking, I think when people talk about domestic violence, they do talk about women, but I think we need to talk about the men as well. To me, it is a matter of control. So what I teach people in is how to live fearlessly, and people who are perpetrators in domestic violence are wanting to take control over somebody else. So what's inspired me to do that is many, many reasons, but generally speaking, it's so that each person can live their life to their fullest and live the life that they dream in a safe environment, not afraid to be at home, and certainly not those extreme cases where there's the mind manipulation and also the physical manipulation as well.
Definitely. So why do you think that at this current stage in the 21st century, there are still stigmas surrounding domestic violence where people do not feel that they're able to speak about these issues openly?
It's really interesting, isn't it? There's some very brave people who are coming out and talking about it, and there is a conversation about it now. And it's not only domestic violence, there's other issues on the planet that are being raised. Certainly social media has something to do with that. But often people feel, in my experience, that there's something to be ashamed of, and some cultural things can come into play there as well. Street angel, home devil, things like that, where you tend to keep it a secret and not talk to other people about it. Reaching out in a domestic violence situation is the most bravest step that a person who's experiencing domestic violence can take, and there is no shame in it. But when you're the person that's in it, you may not feel that at the time.
Yeah, definitely. So seeing as there is that sort of cloak, or there is that stigma in some cultures or some families surrounding domestic violence where people may not feel comfortable coming forward, what are some signs that people in the community can look out for in determining whether potentially someone may be experiencing domestic violence?
Well, I mean, there are some obvious ones. You could just knock on a neighbour's door if you hear yelling and different things like that. A number of times I myself have done that in various circumstances, just walk up to people and ask if they are genuinely okay. People that withdraw, and also quite often the body language of the person. But generally speaking, I think just observation and then approaching somebody and asking them if they are okay and letting them know that you can be there for them if required. But the cast down eyes, the lack of self-esteem, the lack of self-confidence, obviously that if there is telltale signs of abuse, physical abuse for the person, yes.
Yeah, so it's always okay to just ask the question, is everything okay?
I think in my experience and what I like to share with people and where I like to live and endeavour to is to come from the most non-judgmental place and to come from heart to heart and with compassion. And if you can create a safe place for somebody to open up and speak with you, that's the greatest thing that you can do for anyone in any situation, to allow them the safety to speak the truth.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that there was sometimes like a cultural aspect which could drive people's responses to domestic violence, and we've definitely noticed that from a legal perspective, and even things such as whether someone would feel comfortable approaching police for help.
Yes.
Do you think that domestic violence is more of a cultural issue, or is it a societal issue?
I think it's a societal issue. Culture has something to play in it. In my experience, we've each been raised in different families. Rita's been raised somewhere different. You and I have similar backgrounds, but you have a different heritage to myself. And there's conditioning and belief systems. So what I actually teach is mind mastery, and that is actually unraveling those belief systems that don't serve you, and not coming from a place of belief, but coming from a place of knowingness. So if we blindly follow what our parents did, or what something is being told to us that may not sit comfortably with our soul, and we know that it isn't correct, but we blindly follow it, it's quite dangerous. I think what we all need to do is to question, and to question whether this is in the greatest good of all. So, yes, there are certain cultures where women are still suppressed, and I know Rita does a lot of work around that. But the suppression of women has been something for a very long time. Even equality in Australia around the wages gap, and when graduates leave university and things like that. So there is some correction to make. However, what I'd like to share is that in a different reality is that we are all powerful beyond limits. And no matter what our cultural upbringing is, and no matter what our society and our conditioning, we can actually change our conditioning. The most important thing to realise is that we have been conditioned, and some of it serves us and some of it doesn't. And certainly staying in an unsafe place and thinking that there's no way out definitely doesn't serve.
Definitely. No, that's very true. So you've established Career College to assist women. Could you please tell us a little bit about how, specifically in relation to domestic violence, how you're able to assist women?
Okay. So to go back to the belief systems, so fundamentally the Career College teaches people to live fearlessly. And if you're in a domestic violence situation, you're in a very fearful situation. We also teach about mind mastery and the science of mind over matter. So our minds can be our most powerful ally, where if you focus it, you can achieve anything. Having said that, if that is turned against you and you have a belief system that you're less than, and it can be very challenging if someone's putting you down or potentially even beating you up, and you get to a point where you don't know what is right or wrong, or which way to turn, or you're even too scared to make a decision, you lose all sense of self and sense of purpose. It's really challenging. However, to understand that you have a mind and that you can focus it, and if you can even take some steps towards that. So what we do is we teach people about the power of the mind, about the two states of being, love and fear, and certainly living in a fearful situation, or in a fearful situation, in a domestic violence situation, is living in fear. Then what we do is also support people with the practical tools to be able to make the stands that they need. That could be assertiveness, it may be to move on, to make the decisions that they need to make in every area of their life. Another thing that's quite common in domestic violence situations, and you and I were having the chat today, people controlled by sex, they're controlled by anger, they're controlled by money, they're controlled by time, and they isolate people. So in knowing the different ways and understanding the cycle of abuse and educating yourself about those things and having some awareness of what you're in so that you can see that cycle happening and where it's at. So with knowledge, there's power. So we talk about that, and also then the practical tools. If it's a financial abusive situation, that can be knowing your career. It could be that you may not have been working for a while and you're too scared and you don't know how you can be financially independent. So it's to recognise your own gifts and talents and skills, and then take practical steps to be able to achieve the career that you want to move forward. So it's very practical, but also probably the most highest level that you can get, because we have the ability to create our reality. In fact, we are basically in a TV show where we are creating our own reality, and we can change who we are within that. It takes a lot of power and it takes a lot of courage, and we are there to support, but not to become codependent on us, to actually empower you, so that by ripple effect you can then go out and support, including children, because otherwise if you don't break the chain, it'll go down another generation.
Definitely. No, that sounds like a fantastic initiative. It's very holistic and practical. And it's
Definitely.
like we mentioned earlier, it's really supporting women in that phase of, you know, rebuilding their lives professionally and personally. And that really needs to be seen through till the end. So that's great. That's a great initiative.
Yeah, it's practical. You need to know you're not alone, but also I would really, really love everybody that's listening, and particularly anybody that may be experiencing domestic violence, to take away something tonight, and that is that you're not alone, and also that even though you may feel really powerless, you're not. You are actually powerful beyond limits, and when you tap into that power, miracles happen.
Definitely. And you mentioned about the concept of control as part of domestic violence. Obviously, there is a definition in Australia that encompasses what domestic violence, how it can be manifested in different ways.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about, we've seen how in England coercive control has been integrated into that, definition of domestic violence. What are your thoughts about that? And do you think that that's something that Australia should now adopt as well?
Definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely, definitely. I just read a book by another lady who was in a domestic violence situation in England. And sadly, sorry, there's a bug flying around if you can see me moving my hands, my pet. Sadly, in her situation, she was not empowered and did not get out of that domestic violence situation. And her 4 children were all sexually abused. She eventually did get out of that situation, and it was, in the majority of instances, coercive control.
Yeah, no, there's definite room for amendment in the current law and policy.
Definitely.
I think that would be, very, very important to implement.
And I was just speaking to a young girl only in the last 24 hours, and I just said it's the mind games. It wasn't the word I used, those who know the word, but it basically, they do that with your mind and you don't realise it, and you get so in it, you just don't understand. So if you are in that situation, meditation, prayer, separating yourself and finding some sort of way to centre and balance yourself is really important. And just if it doesn't feel correct, that's your guidance system. And your guidance system and your intuition will never fail you.
Yeah.
And those feelings are real and they're there for a reason, and it's the courage to act on those and get out of them.
Definitely. Okay. And you mentioned earlier that obviously domestic violence, if we're speaking about it, we need to look at all of the demographics. There are obviously men who are impacted by domestic violence and who are the victims of domestic violence. What has your experience been in assisting those men, and could you tell us a little bit about that and how it may be different?
In a number of instances with women, there's sort of like the physical abuse and the fairly heavy sexual abuse and things like that. The men that I have been coaching, and powerful men too, generally speaking, it's the coercive, it's the control, the put down, it's the you're not good enough, all of those sorts of things, and getting them to question to the point where they don't know, and they've lost their self-esteem and self-worth as well. So it's actually quite more common than you realise, and it's quite real. And I think I've got lots of whys, and one of my whys is to prevent suicide. And I'm without doubt that men in domestic violence situations would generally feel less powerful to be able to come forth about something like that, questioning their manhood, and they may choose to check out, which is such a shame because, as we all know, if we've had children, boys can be equally as sensitive as girls. We're not born tough, we're raised tough.
Yeah.
And some women have been raised tougher than men and use that against them. So
definitely. No, yeah, if we're having the discussion about domestic violence, we can't forget about, you know, the men in this conversation as well.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I guess that's another aspect, is that why do we not talk about that as much? We should be allowing men to express themselves and feel comfortable in seeking help. So that's great that, you know, you're able to shed light upon that sort of aspect of it as well.
And generally the work that I do with the men that have been in domestic violence, and I'm thinking of the men that are sort of in my client base now, we call it Inner Circle because we've become so close. It's about rebuilding their life. It's about building a life, having a career, building their business, learning to be assertive, learning to love themselves again, learning to have a more loving relationship, to trust again, all of the things that women go through.
Definitely. All right, Annette, last question for today is, what would your advice be as a professional to women and men who are experiencing domestic and family violence?
Reach out for help. Yeah, just say something to someone and take the first step. It's the biggest step. It's really hard to do, I know, but if you just take the first step and just trust, you'll find that there are many, many people who will support you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Annette. That was very insightful. And I think it's very interesting to listen to your perspective about, you know, the importance of the mind and controlling the mind to, you know, move past these traumatic experiences and then rebuild your life. And like we were talking about earlier, like lawyers will do the immediate, they'll help you get protection and, you know, enforceable like court orders, but you're really doing that important phase of rebuilding, reintegration into the workplace and just empowerment. And that's generally, you know, where we see a lot of people falling through the cracks. So that's just very, very important work. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. When your whole wheel's been turned upside down and you've got to begin again, that's where we can support.
Yeah, definitely.
At all stages, really. Not just then, but before as well. I'd love to I know that it was my last question, but
no, that's perfect.
And I know that this is going to be a really, really big thing for people who may be experiencing domestic violence to hear. But I need to say it because I know it, and I know it as a truth. And that is that we are literally creating our reality with our thoughts. And if we have a belief system that we're less than, we deserve to be abused, and that men will abuse us and things like that, we will literally create it. And it's like the tip of the iceberg. You know so much about what you think and underneath you don't. And it's basic psychology that all of our thoughts, so all day, every day, our thoughts are creating our reality. So if you want to change your reality, have a look at your belief systems. And even if your reality now is that you're being abused, start to focus on having a reality where you're in a loving and respectful and safe environment, and keep on focusing on that. The power of the mind is what will get you through.
Yeah, definitely. I guess that's all about manifestation as well. That kind of ties into it. Yeah.
Definitely.
No, and that's very true. I agree with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Annette. We'll just move on to some questions for Rita then before we open up the floor for any questions. So Rita, just wanted to first get an idea of what you have observed as a community leader in terms of the situation or the prevalence of domestic violence in Queensland in the last 12 months with COVID.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As I've been working with community for almost 10 years, and then I for especially for last 12 months in COVID time, we see the increase of domestic violence is getting more and more in communities, especially in on-call culture, because what happened, they living with the partner in the same room, and which is that makes it more the woman's more vulnerable to speak up and or do things what they want to do, and they're spending more time. And that's the reason is that's and one of the reasons the domestic violence is going more up. And so especially what happened in the last couple of weeks ago in Gold Coast is Kylie, she got bitten and to burn and in her backyard. It was just only kind of next door. It's just this sort of thing just become more often in last 12 months. It is because of COVID, but the other thing is because because of social media and also more organizations, they're speaking up, and then we can hear what's happening. I'm pretty much sure there was, domestic violence always happening in the community, but because the story wasn't out that much, we didn't know this is, so many cases out. But now we're hearing the cases, and so that's the reason it's like we trying to get to more programs and to cover that sort of thing, but it's not enough.
Absolutely. We've definitely noticed from even the legal perspective that there have been a lot more people seeking help in these COVID times because they are trapped in those situations, and in some ways it's even harder for them to get help. But no, it's definitely a very, very challenging time at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So Rita, you've established women empowerment and leadership. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about what has inspired you to establish this not-for-profit association?
The first thing is starting from 2017, but because I've been working with community for almost 10 years, and then I find that there's a need, there's a gap to empower women, not just only by educate them, it's by so many other things. To empowerment world is very wide and very big. So there's by education and also by monitor those women by different skills, so we can providing skills to do something what they want, and also they upgrade their skill. And this is all about empowerment. And also most important things is domestic violence, which is we seeing in the community, especially the multicultural community, is quite so much, and they want to speak with someone their own language. And so that inspired me to have a platform to help a woman, not only by domestic violence, but basically so many other platforms as well to educate them properly, give them understanding how to live in Australia, and language barrier, legal barrier. So especially we have got a special connection with Emerson Family Law, and we're going through so many cases, basically what's happening with the community. And most of women, they're living with the partner, but they don't have that much financially support to have a lawyer basically to speak up themselves, and that's causing for them to lose their children or by legal way. So their husband is getting the custody, and she kind of step and talk, and that take her in depression and mental health and all of those issues. So to minimize that, so basically now we are working together with Emerson Family Law, and so they get taking that step, and we're taking the step of how to connect them, how to be facilitating between each.
No, that's so true, and I think that's what attracted definitely me to WELL, was just the fact that we saw all the institutional roadblocks that existed to these women from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And WELL just seems to encompass all of those, and it has a strategy for targeting each. So whether it's providing legal support or culturally sensitive medical advice and assistance or career development, I think it's just a very, again, holistic approach to addressing women empowerment and domestic violence in these cowed communities. So that's great. And in terms of what WELL has been able to achieve in the last 12 months in particular, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what initiatives or events or seminars that you've been able to conduct and organize as a part of WELL?
Yes, because of the COVID, we recently just starting to having one-to-one meeting or seminar. But the last 12 months, we most of the time we had like a meeting or Zoom conference or seminar. So more like awareness to the community, which way is the best to hear what's happening in community. And so we have gone through over, if I'm not around 25 different seminars in the last 12 months. So basically it's more than one seminar a month, but not only nationally, but internationally as well. We had minister, our guest speaker. We had a government authority as guest speaker. We have a normal community leaders and the guest speaker to speak up to see what's happening in the community and how we can manage to transfer this voice to the authority. So basically, we successfully have done over just 25 webinars through to social media, and also it's nationally and internationally as well. So I think, if I'm not wrong, 6 months ago, we had another seminar with Dr. Answer from Korea College. We discussed what's happening and how we can empower women through to Korea College, because one of the students from Master Korea College as well. So what I have learned from that was quite extremely useful for myself, and so to give me more empowerment how to use that knowledge for the other community. So I'm so lucky to sitting in this webinar with Dr. Ol again, so to pass this message for the community.
Definitely. And that's remarkable. 25 seminars in the last 12 months is really, really incredible. And it's all that information sharing and education, which is going to result in cultural change. So that's very impressive, Rita. Amazing job. And you've talked about the fact that, you have had some international focused events as well. So would you be able to tell us a bit about what other countries WELL is involved with and what sorts of initiatives we've undertaken overseas?
For the last 2.5 years, so I have actually worked so hard as much as I work hard in Queensland, in Australia, and also in Afghanistan. It's very successful. We have done lots of few good projects between a few different provinces, but we do have our branches, small branches in 25 province, and then we do have our contacts back to Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, and also India as well. So, and now we've got another approach from United States. So basically, it's we're not saying only domestic violence can happen in certain countries, but trust me, it's all around of the world. It's the things. It's not about culture. It's not about where you come from. It's just the nature of a human being living with another human, and that's happened. So the best way is to prevent it is education. To educate it, the male dominant, so to understand what is in law, basically, for that society, to follow that law, to follow that guardian, and also to understand respect for their for a woman. And also, we as a woman, our job is to train our boys to how to respect women from younger age. If we can starting to train the children from younger age, so when they become adult, so automatically they have their attitude. That's what we're doing, not only for Australia, for around of the world.
Definitely. And what have you observed that, what do you think are still the areas where there is a lot of room for improvement in addressing domestic and family violence? What are the areas where you think there needs to be significant improvement?
Mostly we do have a lots of gaps to need to be improved, especially seminars for education. But as we see every day, things is happening. Especially last year, we lost 96 women in case of family domestic violence. It's for a country like Australia, it's quite a lot. And we're living in the first world country, and we have got all the law and regulation and policy, and it's still just happening. It's very sad, but it's still, we see last couple of months, there are more budget is coming up, and the program is coming up, and even virtual and face to face. And this is the things that slowly starting it. Hopefully for next 12 months we can see the difference.
Definitely. And then, so we've talked a little bit about what WELL has been able to do in the last 12 months. Looking forward, what does WELL plan to do, or if there's something already in the works with WELL, to address these roadblocks and these little gaps that are existing at the moment in our response to domestic violence?
So to get to more engage with the community, with not only Pacific, for general community. As we see last few weeks, Kylie, she got bitten and burned in her backyard. She was from Australia, and she was Aussie. She with the Australian background. Then that doesn't mean it's only happening in the multicultural community. It does happen with anyone. So basically, we need a more work on with the male-dominant background. So we need to educate them, especially police force. They need to be more take the responsibility. Not only the giving like the DV order to 20 meters away from each other and then leave the case for the court. That's not good enough. As soon as they find the cases there, they need to address it to mental health, because domestic violence mostly is starting from mental health. Mental health is starting from financial issue, or it's a drug or alcohol. It's these sort of things. We need to work on more in police areas and with their policy, if we can change it. So before it's getting too late.
Definitely. And yeah, that's again something that we've noticed in terms of the police side of things. To make it more appropriate for all people to approach them, there needs to be more interpreters and just more sort of cultural sensitivity as well. A lot of Australians as well just feel, that they aren't able to approach police for help, or that they fear that it may adversely impact them for some other separate reason. So yeah, I definitely agree that, accessing safety through police needs to be made a more sort of, it should be a lot more of an easy process. There shouldn't be any fears involved in seeking help like that. Definitely.
Yeah, but there's one of the saddest things is when we speak with any victim, and we ask like, have you reported police, and they say no, and the question is rising up why we need to actually report in the police, and they say they're not doing anything. They're just asking us to fill a couple of paperwork, and they straight away sending us to court, and when the court is giving that order to not come in close to each other, and even makes it worse. But this is the question. Community need to understand there's a police, but police need to change their policy. And as soon as they're getting phone calls, as soon as they're getting like cases coming up, they need to address it as a mental health, or the authority, they need to look after it more closer. They don't have to go straight away to the court. My job is done. So there's the streets is safe. There's no more crime. This is not that, even they're making worse.
Definitely. Yeah. And then last question, Rita, what do you think members of the community can do at a grassroots level to, help each other in this fight against domestic violence? What can anyone do?
First thing is speaking with each other. If there's any concern, they need to address for the authority who's in charge, and also share with their good friend. And if they don't feel safe, they don't feel like comfortable to go to police or authority, at least they have got their good friend. And if they don't have this, like they don't feel like to talk with their good friend, they need to go to any organization like us, like there's 100 numbers there to talk to someone before it's getting too late. You need to get help. There's always help. And especially in the last couple of months, there's so much advertisement is happening, and also for domestic violence, specific program is happening. So we need to educate the community. There is a program you need to actually reach to us, and then we try to help you as much as we can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rita. It's such a pleasure to work alongside you. Your passion for not only the empowerment of women, but your genuine desire to make these changes to prevent domestic violence is very palpable, and it is spurring many people on to advocate for this cause. So it's very, very inspiring what you're doing. So thank you so much to both of our speakers. Your insights have undoubtedly stimulated much thought within us all, and it will spur us to action to further this discussion and have many more events and forums where we can, engage in constructive dialogue in the